Well, this summer, we have been looking at the media and what is out there. The first month of June this summer, we looked at what? Okay, 4 of y'all were here in June. We did music, right? We listened to some songs and try to tie that in with the message of Christ, right? And then in July, we did what? Movies. Very good. Our memory's starting to kick in. All right, then we did movies. The month of August, well, let's back up. Because music has been around a lot longer than movies, right? And so something else that we're going to tackle on this month is the newest of all the media. You know what that is? It's the dreaded social media. How many of y'all do social media? See, in about 15 years from now, everybody's going to be raising a hand. Like, how many of you have a TV set? How many of you have a cell phone? You remember when cell phones came out, how many of us going, I'm not getting no thing. And now in a board meeting somewhere, it'll go off and all of us older folks will read, hey, I can't answer the phone right now. Right in the middle of a meeting. Have you heard of a phone message or something? But that's just a part of our life, is that as things progress, things come at us at a faster pace. And social media is just kind of taking everything by storm. And if you ever see the top of your kids' heads or grandkids' heads, that's what they're doing. They're doing social media. They're constantly doing this with their phones. And it's just not kids and grandkids. Now it's all of us, a lot of us. And I've been kind of reluctant with social media, but I've been recently trying to move back into that particular arena because a lot of people are. And not just a lot of people are, millions of people are. And so I'm starting to see the advantages of social media. Now, there's some bad parts of it, just like everything else, but there are also some real positive things that come out of social media. And so we're going to talk about this month is we're going to look at social media and look at a lot of the positive things that come out of that and how things are being used. I'll just give an example. There can be one message that's on social media that might be a positive message, right? And so if I give a positive message here on Sunday, how many people are in this room, you think? 100 people? Let's say 100 people. Danny, how many are awake during that time? How much? Wake him up and tell him what we're doing. Now, if you have a positive message on social media, you can get 5 million people looking at it. That's a big congregation, right? That's a huge thing. And the nice thing about that, you don't have to sit through a whole sermon. You can catch little glimpses of it during the whole time. And so there's a lot of power that is involved in that. And so things are being revealed to people at a very fast pace. And so we're going to kind of look a little bit about how that all ties together this month. And so it'll be kind of interesting because I'm not sure how it's going to do since I'm just kind of starting to get my feet wet a little bit in some of these things, but we're going to kind of see how that goes. I won't be here next Sunday. I will be in a little town called Chadron, Nebraska. Who knows where that is? Those of you who have spent many years in 40 below zero weather know where Chadron, Nebraska is. It's in the top corner, left-hand corner of Nebraska. You have to fly into South Dakota, Rapid City, South Dakota. And then you shoot down about an hour and a half from there. You pass Mount Rushmore. So it's a real beautiful country in the hills. We're going to be Brenda and I will be taking child number 2 to college. And so while we're going up there, and Kathy, you all right, bud? You laughing at that? Child number 2 will be dumped off in the middle of the United States. And so there's some anxiety of that. Anybody who's done that before knows the anxiety of that. And so I'm just imagine there's going to be a lot of kind of grief that takes place along the line. I've done this before. And we're going to go through that kind of a period. But to me, there's a lot of excitement about preparing someone for this next stage of life, because this is a very big stage of life where he has to take off and do, where he has to take everything that he has learned, everything he has been taught, everything that he has shown by y'all, by us, by the schools, the teachers, the coaches throughout his 19 years. He has to get away from us and not depend on us for everything and learn how to take everything that we have taught him and to apply it. He cannot come home and do his laundry. It's 15 hours away. But he already knows how to do that. He already knows how to cook. So we're kind of preparing him along the way. So it's kind of an exciting time. And I kind of enjoy this next stage of life of teaching him how to take everything that he has learned and begin the process of applying it in his own life without what we parents tend to do is overparent, right? Don't we do that sometimes? We're kind of guilty. We don't want our child to hurt. We don't want our child to suffer. We don't want to feel pain. So we're real quick to pick them up and do things for them. And so we're trying not to do that, but that's kind of our natural tendency to want to do it because we're parents used to doing with children, but they're not children anymore. Sam is, as hard as it said to say this, Sam is a man. He's a little, well, he's not little, he's kind of big, but he's still little in my mind. But he's a young man, and he's learning how to take that next stage of life. And the hardest thing for us as parents is to believe in our child's ability to survive, right? Now, I'm a little bit different than most parents because I was parented differently, right? It was pretty much survive at the age of 14. And one of the best lessons that as what my dad ever taught me was when I went to school, my first semester was at West Texas A&M in Canyon, Texas. It was West Texas State University back then, in the middle of nowhere, just kind of almost what Sam's going through. And so I remember calling him, and it took about a month before funds started running out. And in Canyon, Texas, you had a McDonald's, right? And that was pretty much it. And so I called Dad and says, I'm out of money. What do I do? And he said to me, get a job. There's 7,000 applicants at McDonald's, and I'm not one of them. He said, good luck. My response was what? You can't do this to me. Why don't you love me? Why don't you take care of me? Why don't you do things for me? But once I figured out how to survive and get through that, then I look back at that and said, that is the best lesson he could have taught me. Because he wasn't afraid I'd fall on my face. He knew and he believed that I could survive and get through and learn how to take care of myself and how to work and how to do school all at the same time. And so that was one of the greatest lessons of love that I've ever been taught by my father. And it wasn't a word, or it was just a simple word. You know, good luck. That's one word, right? Take care. You can do this. This is what you've been equipped to do. I think our next stage as parents is a kind of a difficult one because it's not so much to try to kick the child out of the nest, right, as the birds do, but it's to help them in the process of teaching them, of showing them, of trusting, learning them to teach them how to trust their skills, how to trust their gifts, their abilities, their knowledge, and their beautiful spirit on learning how to fly on their own. And I think that's a very challenging thing to do because it's trying to teach these kids how to live a balanced life of being independent, yet at the same time how to be dependent on people that you know and love and on one another. And that's a difficult thing to do because preparing a child to mature and to face life as a responsible adult is challenging. But it's also very similar to preparing a church to mature in our faith and to face life as responsible Christians. Because it requires the same set of skills and responsibilities. And many Christians rely on their minister to do their faith for them, much like children rely on their parents too much. Our scripture reading is a book in Titus. It's only 3 chapters long. It's a very quick chapter, but it's a really interesting situation that's taking place in these churches in an island called Crete. This church is a young church, adolescent church, baby church. And they're starting to grow up in their faith. So what does that basically mean? It's just like our children. We're constantly instructing them, teaching them. But it just goes in one ear, right, and just plays around in their brain. So when they keep hearing the message over again, what do they say? I know you told me that already. But we have to keep telling that message over and over again because that message is not what? It's not sinking down below their ears. It's not seen reflective in what they're doing with their lives. And so they're in the next stage of their life where you have to understand that what you do with yourself is important. Your actions, your behavior, your tendencies, how you control your affect, your emotions, is very important to our faith. It's just not what you do up in here. It's not what you do out in this group. It's what you do out there. You see, for this particular church, like many churches, is that they come to a congregation and they listen. And they come to Sunday mornings just to be nice to each other, to be cordial to each other, to talk about Jesus and all those nice and warm things. But then when they go outside, what happens? Then they go to their home life. And then they go to their work life. Then they go to their social life. And it wasn't connecting the dots because they're acting different at home with their children, with their wife, and treating them poorly, going down to their work and treating their employees horribly, or going to their social life and just kind of tying one on and not being responsible, just to unload. They weren't making the connection. So this letter to Titus, Titus is the overseer of the church, and instructing these children about their behavior. That their behavior, their actions, their tendencies, how they manage their emotions, tells their family, tells their work, tells their social outlets the story of who they are and what they truly believe. Actions and behaviors matter more than anything else in our faith. I'm going to read some words from this particular book, and it's 3 chapters long, but there's just some parts of this I want to read to you that comes out of Titus from the author. So here are these words. I don't know if it ties up. Yeah, there's some. And these are talking about people within the church. There are so many rebellious people. They're idle talkers and deceivers, especially those of circumcision, those who have been past Jews, that they must be silenced, since they are upsetting the whole families by teaching the sordid gain of what is not right to teach. And so for this reason, rebuke them. Rebuke them sharply, so that they may become sound in their faith. They profess to know God, but they deny Him by their actions. They are detestable, disobedient, unfit for any good work. So I want you to remind them to be subject to the rulers and authorities, to be obedient, but to be ready for every good work. To speak evil of no one, to avoid quarreling, to be gentle, to show every courtesy to everyone. The sayings are sure, and I desire that you insist on these things, so that those who have come to believe in God may be careful to devote themselves to good works, that these things are excellent and profitable to everyone. Now, it may sound kind of harsh, right? But what Paul is trying to help people understand is that how you act, how you behave, what you do outside the walls of church is very important. The whole reason of being here is to learn and to be equipped, but allow those teachings to penetrate into our hearts and to look out into society. Now, today I want to kind of look at some social media things. And that's kind of a challenging thing, I think. But one thing I've learned real quickly is that social media is an amazing tool that has been given to us. It's just constant information that impacts our lives. And as an old timer, I was just one of those who never really wanted to use it, but been slowly learning the value of doing that. And so spiritually, I've also learned that on social media, there's a lot of great messages that are out there. Messages that aren't necessarily quotes that says from this particular Bible, but messages from a lot of people who have been influenced by their faith and share these messages on social media that are very similar to what Christ valued in his life. And again, These messages are going out to millions and millions and millions of people. And so I want to share some of those messages with you, okay? I had a lot of different videos I want to show, but today I'm going to talk about just looking at some of the messages that go through on some of the Twitter accounts that I've had. And so I want to show you some of that and how the values in these particular statements, how they connect with the values that are taught by Christ, okay? So we're going to kind of go through a few of these. There's only about 645, right? So something like that, all right? So let's hit the first one. All right, this is one that's pretty good. Your excuses get you 0% closer to your goals. Now, a lot of these are what we talk about, and this is a lot of coach speak, right? Coaches always have a lot of good quotes because of coaching and preaching and being a minister are pretty similar. Whether you like sports or not, it doesn't matter. But one of the things that we talked about with this is that what is our goal as a Christian faith? What is your goal that you set for your faith? I've talked to so many people in their life and says, you know what? I really need to get myself together. I really need to do this. I really need to do that. I need to get myself to church. I know I need to go to Sunday school. I need to do all those things. But what happens? That we end up finding reasons not to do it. And so making excuses gets you 0% closer to what your goal of becoming a part of your faith. That's why they call what we do disciplines, because it requires us to constantly do the things after each other. And there's another thing that we brought up before. If it's important to you, you're going to find a way to do it. If it's not important to you, you will find an excuse. So one thing we have to do as a people of faith is to determine what's important to me. Is my faith important to me? Instead of finding reasons not to do the things that I need to be doing, find a reason to do the things you need to be doing. Pretty simple. What's the next one? This is a lot what Paul was talking about in this letter. People have been talking about their faith all their life, since they've been brought into the faith. They talk about it, but they don't act on it. And so this is another big coach speak here, is that don't talk about it, just be about it. Live your life the same way that you were taught to live through the Scriptures. Just don't say you're a Christian, be a Christian. Show it through your actions and through all that other part that we do with our lives. Go ahead, next one. This is a pretty good one. This is a very good one for the very reasons of what we go through difficulties in life, right? Has anybody had a struggle before in their life? Anybody? Anybody have an illness that they've gone through, someone who died on them, someone who has struggled with loss of this or loss of that? And this is the message of Christ, but it's taught in a way that people go, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. And so it kind of goes like this. An arrow can only be shot by pulling it backwards, right? When life is dragging you back with difficulties, it means that you're going to be launched into something that is great. So just focus and keep aiming, right? That's the message of Christ. You are going to grieve, but for a little while. But you know what? That grief will turn to joy. And you will use what pain that you have, that testing that we call that, into doing something profound with your life because of what you have suffered, because of what you went through in your difficult moments of life. So keep focused and keep aiming. Keep moving forward. Good message. What's another one? I just thought that was cute. All right, we can go to the next one. Sorry about that. I know you're very embarrassed. This is also something that refers to disciples and followers of Jesus. When we can do a common thing of life in an uncommon way, you will command the attention of the world. Think about what Jesus did in his life. What did he do that was just amazing? He just did simple, common things. He lived his life. He loved people. He didn't allow people to say, you can't do that because you're not this. You can't do that because you're not that. He did not listen to the opinions of people. He did exactly what he was taught to do and what he was showed by God to do, and he just simply did it. He finds common disciple people. He found those who are just on the streets, and he turned them and said, go out and help people and love people and just do those common things in a very uncommon way. And what happened? Has anybody heard the word Jesus before? Anybody know the disciples? Anybody know Mother Teresa? They didn't set the world on fire. They did common things in a very uncommon way. That is what the heart of the gospel is about. So when you say, well, I need to have faith as strong as this or that, it's not about doing great things with your life. It's about doing common things, making yourself available and doing the things that nobody else wants to do. All right, what's another one? Lions. How many do that? How many are guilty of that? You spend too much time worrying about what other people think of you. A lion does not concern himself with the opinion of a sheep. Isn't that the truth? There's one that's similar. Is there the other lion picture right after that one, Ryan? Where's the other lion picture? Because it goes with that one as well. The greatest fear in the world is of the opinions of others. In the moment you are unafraid of the crowd, that you are no longer a sheep. You become a lion. A great roar rises in your heart, the roar of freedom. One of the things that Christ tries to teach us is to find that center part where God is and to listen to the voice of God and strive to do things out of a response to what God wants us to do and not because we're trying to make people happy. The most difficult things to do is not to worry about what other people think. It doesn't matter what people think about you. What matters is what direction are you going in life to make things right for others as a result of what Christ is doing for you. Opinions are very important. Let's move on. Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. All right. I'm going to liken this to a person who was very timid about coming to a study that we do on Wednesday nights. Did not want to share anything. And so one day she came into the group and she started sharing things about her life. And it was very impactful. And started talking about that and how it compares to her faith and what she's going through in her faith. And so afterwards, I pulled her aside and said, that was amazing. What you did right there was amazing. You have so much to share for people to learn and gain from your experiences in the past. And she looked at me and said, I have nothing to share. And that doubt that she carries, either from her past of being raised, or those voices in her life that says that you are not worth much, caused all that doubt throughout her entire life that says, I have nothing that I can share that has to do with my faith, when she has everything in the world to share. We have to get over some of that and learn how to heal those parts within our lives so that we can be a dream of God for other people. Next one. All right, Nick Saban. Don't like him, but who cares? This you can take the word team and you can put the word church in here, okay? Because this is something that talks about church. To be a good player or a good person in the church, to be a good person in your church, you have to affect someone else. You have to cause them to play better than the way that you play. Do you see that? One thing I love about team sports is that you have to rely on other people. And the person next to you is not going to be any good unless you're putting everything into it. It's the same thing about church, about our faith. We're not sitting here to be isolated from other people. We're sitting here for one reason, and that's to make life better for other people. And how you work hard and participate in your faith makes the person next to you do just as well. And so it's constantly working and growing and developing and taking our place within the church that helps us to grow and develop as human beings, as children of God. Next one. I think we're down to our last 300. Vince Lombardi. Y'all know who Vince Lombardi is? I think it was Liza Minnelli's first husband, Shannon. I think that's who that was. One of her 12, 15, I can't remember. Vince Lombardi is a football coach for Green Bay Packers. Y'all know a guy named Hank Grimminger used to play for Vince Lombardi in those glory days. And he used to come here, and he used to love to talk about Vince Lombardi, how strong, motivated a person he was. But he's also a person who is a strong person of God. And he was not afraid to share that faith in the way he coached people. This is something that we talk about all the time in church, as well as sports. And this is one thing I would like about this. When you can find people who can really do this. Winning is a habit, okay? We're not just talking about winning here. We're talking about the rest of these things. To watch your thoughts, what goes up in your brain. Watch your thoughts because they become your belief. And watch your beliefs because they become your words. Watch your words because they become your actions. Watch your actions because they become your habits. Watch your habits because it becomes your character. We talk about the 7 elements of faith, right? And the reason we keep hammering away on that is saying you have to get into a study group. You have to learn what God is trying to say. You have to be around people of faith so they can give you the support and encouragement you need. You have to spend time every day, not to talk to God, but just listen to God. You have to constantly put thoughts into your brains about what God is like and how much God loves you and cares about you and believes in what you can do. Because once you begin to believe in yourself or believe those words, those thoughts, they start to become our words and our actions, and that's what we call transformation. So it is important what we put into our brains because it tells us what our actions are. And if you want to know anything about anybody, just watch them. Watch what they do at home. Watch what they do at work. Watch what they do at play. You'll know everything you need to know about their faith, good, bad, or indifferent, because it does matter what we put into our thoughts and how consistent we are, because what we do outside this place is really where church is and how it has an impact on the world around us. Final thing on social media. I've learned that it's the invisible pulpit that reaches out to millions and millions of people. And whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter a bit. You can't do anything about it. It's out there. But what you can do is you can figure out with your kids and your grandkids who they're following, what they're listening to, what they're watching. Because that is what is invading their thoughts. If it's stuff like this, then you're in good shape. They can go just the other way as well. So instead of complaining about it and doing nothing, I would much rather you do something by looking and seeing what's shaping and forming their thoughts, especially if they're not getting into a place where it can be filled with Christ, like in youth group or church or Sunday school, because that is what's going to determine their faith and their actions in the world around us. We'll talk more about that next Sunday. Spend some time on to think about the effects of social media. We'll even keep this up on here, and you can look at what Vince had to say.